For decades now, BMW has been making the 3 Series, really the staple car when it comes to what they sell. They're bread and butter. Even while SUVs and crossovers are dominating, the 3 Series is still a very popular vehicle for BMW. The E46 on both sides of me, probably one of the most popular versions of the 3 Series, considering we have 2 of them here. Out of all the ones that showed up, we have 2. Something like the E46 M3 is also one of the best driver's cars. But then BMW wanted to improve. They came out with the E90, and a lot of people love this car. Brought something like the BMW 330i xDrive, and also had coupes, wagons, sedans, convertibles. The tech involved with the E90 is quite great. And then they followed it up with the F30. We featured those quite a bit on test drive over the last little while. But the real question that we're going to be answering today is the new one. Does the new G20 BMW 3 Series still live up to the lineage that is the ultimate driving machine, or is it more of just sheer driving pleasure? We've all seen the G20, whether it's in photos or videos, a lot of stuff. BMW has been promoting this car since it was first unveiled not too long ago. And then a lot of the dealerships out here in Quebec, they've done press events, launch events for the car. People have had them on the road. We're not the first people to get it, obviously. But this one, this specific one, is an early production model. It's not a pre-production model. So there is something that we need to note as we go over some of the features about it, because it came out a little bit before it was all finalized. So there's 2 packages on this car. You have the $4,900 Premium Pack Enhanced. You get an automatic trunk, comfort access, and then the park assist with a 360-degree surround view camera. That's the asterisk here, because this is an early production model. It didn't come with a 360 camera. You also have a remote starter, which is a nice thing to have. We've seen that on something like the new G05 X5. So a lot of features that we would hope to find on the new car, and we kind of expect it. You take a look at any of BMW's vehicles from the past, the 3 Series usually follows the design, both interior and exterior, and technical improvements from cars like the 7 Series. They also have the $2,000 M Sport package. It's a plus. It's a nice thing to have on this car. I certainly recommend it. You get the 19-inch M light alloy double spoke style 791M bicolor rims. It's a big mouthful there. You also have the adaptive M suspension, high gloss shadow line trim, which gets rid of all the chrome bits on the car, LED fog lights, the M aerodynamics package, and then this car also has an $895 option for the black sapphire metallic paint. But let's go over the rest of what this car has to offer. Again, it's all new. 7th generation G20 is a completely new 3 Series from the ground up. So as I mentioned, you've got LED headlights with the new daytime running lights, LED fog lights with the M Sport package. Laser lights are available. We're not a huge fan of them. We've talked about that on other vehicles from BMW so far. You also have what I would call magic wiper blades. BMW doesn't really have a term for it, but the wiper nozzles are built into the wiper blades. So when you clear off the windshield, they won't obstruct your view. We've seen that actually for quite some time from Mercedes-Benz, but a lot of the new BMW products have that feature as well. It's a nice little plus. You can get the driver assistance package on this car that would have things like adaptive cruise control. It's not on this car, but you do have forward collision warning with pedestrian detection, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist. You can also go up to the Premium Excellence package, which is more of the Premium Enhanced. You just get a couple more things on it, mostly interior stuff. But if you were to get that over this, you'd have the High Beam Assistant and adaptive cruise control. So whichever one you go with, you'll have those options there. This one doesn't have it. It's not the end of the world. A couple other changes for the G20. It uses the new 8-speed ZF transmission that we've seen on other BMW products so far. It uses the navigation system to determine whether or not it can avoid unnecessary gear changes. It will also use the adaptive cruise control if equipped to do the same thing. We've seen that. We've talked about that with other vehicles from BMW. BMW also says it uses the latest version of xDrive, which splits the torque more evenly and efficiently between the front and the rear, and still has that rear-wheel drive bias setup. And finally, with the G20, BMW says they have achieved perfect 50-50 weight distribution with this car. We talked about that a little bit when we did our 4 Series versus 3 Series comparison, where the 4 Series was actually more of a 50-50 split than the 3. This now beats that. Other features of the exterior include front and rear park distance control. Again, a backup camera instead of the 360 one that would come on this car. You have automatic power folding mirrors when you lock the door, comfort access to be able to get in, which will also work if you walk away from the car or come close to it. And you also have an automatic trunk on the back. Now, the design-wise, talk about that for a second. Personally, I like it. I think it's a very aggressive looking car, especially in the black with the M Sport package. Some people have claimed that the back end looks a little too much like Lexus design language. I personally don't see it a whole lot, but maybe you do. Again, we always say that looks are subjective. So while I might like the look of it, you might not. And that's okay, we can enjoy different things. But I think that it is a nice update for BMW. It gives it more of a coupe look back with those taillights. We saw that on the X4 and the M850i. I like it. It's not gonna be for everybody. But let's jump inside. There's a lot going on for the interior of this car, and then we'll do some performance and street testing with this vehicle to go over everything else you need to know about the 7th generation BMW 3 Series. As the owner of a black BMW with a light colored interior, it's hard for me not to approve of this color combination. I mean, normally not a big fan of the black. I like a little bit of color on the outside, but interior here, perfect. Has a $1,500 setup for the leather seats here. They are cognac Vernasca leather. I do like the color combination here. Contrasts very well with the black. Now you do have the option for either a leatherette or a leather dashboard. This one doesn't have it. Doesn't too much kill the mood of the car because it is a 3 Series. And even though the technology always advances with the 3 Series, you have to keep in mind that it is still positioned as an entry-level BMW. So you're not going to get all the luxury features that you would on something like a 7 Series. I also mentioned that this car has the $4,900 premium enhanced package that adds things like the color head-up display, heated steering wheel, heated front seats, heated outboard rear seats, lumbar support for both front occupants, XM satellite radio, HomeLink, and wireless charging. And the wireless charger actually works with my iPhone 8 Plus. It doesn't open up Apple Pay. You also have the M Sport package, really just adds the M Sport steering wheel, not the Sport steering wheel. Not a huge fan of that one. The M Sport one looks pretty nice in this car. But when it comes to the rest of the tech on the interior of the G20, it is pretty similar to the 2019 X5 and the 2019 M850i that we featured. You have BMW's Live Cockpit. It's a 12.3-inch display. Looks beautiful. Doesn't have a ton of information. It's not quite like what Audi does with their digital cockpit, but it works well enough. Elegant, simple, and it keeps the information that you don't get on your HUD down below, and it works really well. You also have the 10.25-inch iDrive 7 display in the center. Again, we've talked about that at length. Works very well. You have their backup camera. Again, 360 camera would be available on normal production vehicles for this car. It has navigation, XM radio as we talked about, the wireless phone connectivity suite, so you can use your wireless Apple CarPlay with the vehicle. I personally don't. And then you also have tri-zone automatic climate control, 2 zones up front, 1 in the back that you can control from the front and lock it out from the back if you choose to. Now this car isn't fully loaded. It might represent what most people are going to be looking for, especially early adopters of the G20. Doesn't have the Harman Kardon audio system, but still has a 10-speaker BMW professional system with a 205 watt amp. If you go up to the Harman Kardon, you get a 16-speaker setup, 7 channels with a 464 watt amplifier. Really good stuff from there. We love Harman Kardon. 16 speakers on a car like this is pretty good. Even 10. It sounds really good. I streamed Bluetooth audio to the car. No complaints there. It's not bad at all, considering if you have 10 speakers on the base level, it's more than what most premium systems use on other vehicles. So there's a few other things I want to talk about before we go on a road test. These are the sport seats. It comes on all of the models of the 330i, at least for now. They're very comfortable. You have tons of support for them. Headrest is nice. It's not too firm. I do like it. I fit very well in this car. We talked about it with the F33 series. I'm a big guy, and I fit in these cars pretty well. It is a little snug, but for what it is, very comfortable. You do have a large sunroof up top. It's not a panoramic one, but I do find that it is much larger than what we saw even generations ago for the BMW 3 Series. And overall, I mean, the design is elegant. It's not over the top. It fits in line with the 3 Series has always been, which was a very good looking interior, not overly luxurious, but premium nonetheless, and really gets the job done. With navigation coming standard now, I think it's a good plus. If you really need XM radio, it's great. If you listen to your own music, save the cost for that. And again, the speaker system on here already sounds very good. So even though this isn't fully loaded, I'm actually really happy with the way this is configured, and I probably would buy it this way. save a little bit of the cost and be able to put it towards the gas, because it costs a lot for premium up here in Canada. So now that we've gone over pretty much everything in here, I want to take it on a road test, do some testing with this vehicle to talk about fuel economy, performance, drive, ride, handling, and everything else that's important when it comes to the ultimate driving machine. Let's get right into the performance stuff. We're going to take the 330i from a dig, sport mode, there's no Sport Plus, in manual shift mode. Not too bad at all. It's not the most powerful version of the G20. Obviously, the M340i is going to be coming out in dealerships probably within the next couple of months or so. Some of them in the US have already started to receive them. But here, you know, this is pretty decent for a daily driver. You don't need balls to the wall performance all the time, and that's really the whole point of the M Performance stuff, is really a bridge between BMW's regular cars and the M cars, which really have gone not necessarily off the rails, but they really are more track-driven vehicles compared to, say, 20 years ago. But this car certainly pulls really well. I enjoy driving it. It has a decent sound for being a 330i. It's not the most gruntiest that we've driven so far, but again, for the mid-range vehicle, it's pretty good. I find that the shifts are really good, especially if you're going more or less full throttle. If you're up in the higher rev count, it shifts very well. And I know that everybody loves this 8-speed ZF transmission, but I just find, and we'll see if we can see it here, when it's going into the lower gears at lower speeds, I find it's a little, almost like a dual clutch, in the sense that you're feeling a little bit more vibration, a little bit more of a jittery effect when you put it into gear. So like we're coming down second, especially first, like a little harsh, but it's not the worst. Gets the job done. And you know, most people aren't going to be driving this all the time, going to 6,000 RPMs for every gear. I have driven this car pretty much exclusively in sport mode with manual shift mode, just because I enjoy driving it this way. It is fun to be able to shift it yourself, even though the car does a very good job in automatic mode anyway. I find that I prefer it in the manual mode over the sport transmission mode, just because sometimes it's not really mapping it all that well. And for example, this guy's doing 25 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone, and then that way I'm in more control of it. I mean, it has a really deep sound for a small engine like this, right? Yeah, I like it. It's fake. We all know that. We've known that for a little while now, that manufacturers want to enhance the interior sound of the vehicle. I don't mind. I like it. I think it's fun. Gives this car a good feel. But then again, if we put it into something like adaptive mode, which arguably I haven't driven it in, I've kept it in sport mode, you know, kind of changes the profile a little bit. The mapping of the transmission shift down. The car isn't going full balls to the wall. I'd say that the comfort is still there. The steering is still there. We can even put it in Eco Pro mode if we wanted to. I still find that the steering is nice and firm, nice and tight for what you'd want out of it. Comfort mode as well does kind of the same thing. Sport mode, you feel a little bit more feedback on the steering wheel, again, which is why I like driving it in that way. We'll keep it maybe in sport mode, and we'll let the computer do the shifting for us without me keeping it in manual mode, just to talk about the rest of this car. Now, I personally like it. I never had any issues with the outgoing F30. We drove the 330i briefly. We also did a 320i years and years ago. And then we drove the 430i, which, even though the 4 Series isn't being replaced yet, it's still more or less the same car. Now, I had no issues. I know some people said that the steering wasn't really all that BMW when they drive it. I think that shouldn't be an issue with this. Like I said, I never had any problems with it before. But as you're driving along, you do feel that, you know, a heavy steering set here. Suspension is good. You go around a corner, it really grips and hugs that corner well. I'm very impressed with it. I think that, again, your average consumer who's looking at a 330i will definitely enjoy the ride. It is quintessential BMW. I mean, it really does feel like any other car. If I put on blinders and I wasn't looking at the digital cluster here and the nicer version of iDrive, and I just sat in this car, I would assume that it was something like the 430i. And that's what BMW has done best. When you get into their vehicles, they are supposed to essentially drive and perform very similarly. Obviously, you're going to have more power, it's going to be a lot quicker, but the fundamentals are supposed to all be the same. And I do find that that is the case with this car compared to some of the other smaller sized vehicles we've driven from BMW. I do like it. Again, even coming off the line here, you know, it's in sport mode with the sport transmission profile on. You hear a little bit of the grunt from the back, and I like it. It's nice. I mean, it's not the quickest. We were coming back. I wasn't filming it. This was earlier today, but we ended up pulling up behind an E46 M3, and I mean, really, for most people, that is the ultimate driving machine, and it still is. And I mean, obviously, there's no question about which car is faster, but I pulled up behind him just to, yeah, I kind of get a feel, you know, both BMWs, both 3 Series, you know, I thought we could have a little bit of fun. But that dude was gone so fast in that car. Like, this car just, it doesn't keep up, and it's not meant to. I mean, obviously, it's just a 330i, right? But like, just seeing it go and watching it disappear in front of me as I could do nothing, I was powerless.
Let's talk fuel economy for the 2019 BMW 330i xDrive. It did a magical 6 liters per 100 kilometers or 39 US miles per gallon on our 100 kilometer test loop in Eco Pro mode. In fact, I was so shocked I redid the test another day in sport mode and the car still did 6.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Overall fuel economy came in at 7.9 liters per 100 kilometers or nearly 30 mpg during our 652 kilometer week. This number obliterates all other non-hybrid test scores we've gotten except for the compact consumer Kia Forte and Volkswagen Jetta, so it is our top like for the G20 3 Series. The exterior design is also a win for us, even though most seem to think that the rear end has lost its unique design. In fact, the L-shaped taillights are more akin to BMW's design language from the 80s, along with that aggressive front end over the outgoing generation. Interior seat comfort was excellent, though you're still reminded by the plastic and hard surfaces pretty quickly that you're still driving a 3 Series. The 10-speaker BMW professional audio system provided crisp sound replication without having to go up to the more advanced premium Harman Kardon system, and actually sounded on par with sound systems from Bose or Alpine. Finally, the overall drive and handling of the new 3 Series is going to help solidify this BMW as the class-leading sports sedan, with its 50-50 weight distribution and solid center of gravity helping to plant this car on the road and exciting your typical driving experience. But we noted a few things about the G20 that made our dislike list. The engine idle noise is a big problem, often sounding like some of the diesel engines we've tested recently. Better sound insulation is going to be required as companies like BMW continue to move to smaller turbocharged engines. Buyers shouldn't have to sacrifice noise pollution just to drive a BMW. We also experienced problems with iDrive once again, with Bluetooth connectivity issues along with the BMW connected drive system not working, with consistent issues we experienced with the M850i and X5 earlier this season. Finally, we experienced some abnormal transmission shifting issues in manual mode, normally at slower speeds when shifting from first and second. The 8-speed ZF transmission is still one of the best sport transmissions we've driven, but the experience at slower speeds felt more like a dual clutch in a negative way than we'd expect. Overall though, this is once again a solid win from BMW, and will prove to be a popular model for buyers and lessors looking at a comfortable, sporty alternative to crossovers and SUVs. While each new generation BMW loses core enthusiasts, we found during our week that the 2019 BMW 330i xDrive, that this car still lives up to that impossibly high standard of being the ultimate driving machine.